This is Way of the Artist with Brandon Colby Cook and Evan Schulte.
Identifying your blocks and demystifying your struggles
so that you can claim your own path
and make your life a work of art. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Way of the Artist. And this is kind of episode number 1.
Kind of.
It's kind of an episode number 1. This is more of an introduction episode here. My name is Evan Schulte.
And I am Brandon Colby Cook.
And we're doing this thing. We've been doing this thing for a while, and this is really just all about kind of letting you know about what we're about, what the show is going to be about. Lots of about.
What we're going to get into.
So let's just get into it. We want to keep this nice and not too long for you guys so that you can just kind of figure out whether we're for you or not.
Yeah. So if you don't know, we did a podcast before called the B&E Podcast, which was kind of just us figuring out how all this works. And I guess the best way to put that is, Evan and I have written scripts together. We've been actors and, I'm a filmmaker. Evan's also a musician. Anyway, we would get together, we'd write scripts. And as we were editing this one particular script, we kept getting together, having a beer and having a talk. And we ended up having these like hour talks before we ever got to the script writing. And then by the time we were done, we were like, man, that was a good talk. We should have recorded that.
Yeah.
I want to hear that again. And so the idea of a podcast came up. And so we went, okay, let's do that. And we did that for a while. We actually did 165 episodes. And then we started to figure, hey, you know what? We actually got some listeners here. This is pretty good. Maybe we should rebrand and actually figure this stuff out.
Yeah. So, if you are listening to this and you are a person who listened to the B&E podcast, there's going to be a lot about this that's familiar. Some of the changes that we're making are really just things of making it a little bit tighter, making it a little bit more digestible, as well as some other things, just having more of a community, more interaction with all of you. If this is your first time stepping in and listening to us, it's just we want you to know that we're not just some dudes doing this for the first time. And the thing is that to me, one of the most exciting things about us kind of rebranding, for one, a lot of people didn't know what we were about. That was kind of a problem.
Yeah.
The B&E podcast, it's like, it was just like Brandon and Evan, and it was kind of like break and enter. It was like this play on words, but nobody really knew what we were about. And we found ourselves kind of having to try and explain ourselves fairly consistently to people.
Yeah.
But what was like, this is like our podcast, and everybody really dug that once it was all explained. But we felt that it was just time for a bit of a change, a shift in direction, not like a departure or anything, just a shift in direction with what we're doing as well.
I think what we really just kind of ultimately decided was like we wanted more clarity. We wanted more focus. We wanted to make it more about the listener and less about our own discoveries. Because initially, I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
We get together, we had a talk, we bring up some stuff we were working on, and it was all about finding the balance between artistry and industry. How do I be an artist of integrity, do work that matters and is meaningful to me and stay on track? And at the same time, how do I make money and how do I make a career at this thing, full time and do that? And those two don't always go together. So, I think 165 conversations that were really good and really valuable were really about us finding the balance. And I think after a certain point, we're like, okay, I'm feeling pretty balanced. You feeling pretty balanced?
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, now it's more about what's my path as an artist? What's my way? Now that I'm balanced and I can hold my own 2 feet up, right? Or hold my head up, whatever. It's like, where do I want to go with this? What do I want to do? How do I want to live my life?
Yes.
And it's more than just about being an artist, too. I think the thing is way of an artist is more of a mindset. It's an idea of how to go about life that I think is more in integrity with how each of us are. And we all have our own way, but we have similarities about how we go our own way. And that's what we're trying to talk about.
Yes, and through the 165 episodes that we recorded through the B&E podcast, part of the exciting thing about Way of the Artist and this sort of evolution of our conversations is that we took stock of all of the sort of things that we learned through those episodes, because there was a lot of stuff that we worked out and a lot of things that we kind of kept on coming back to, which was one of the most interesting parts for me. Like, not just the conversations we had together, but with the guests that we had on as well. It was like, wow, you're coming up against this too, and these wisdoms started to continually pop up. And that's something that we're going to be bringing more directly into Way of the Artist, which is we've been working and developing kind of a set of laws
or principles,
yeah. However you want to call it, that are just these really wonderful things that crop up as far as what it is to be an artist, how to have more freedom and joy, how to be more in alignment with the process of creativity, right? All these things that we're just like, wow, these are fantastic. And sometimes, like, we, within our own struggles, will come up against one of these things, say, oh yeah, this is exactly like this rule or this guideline or whatever. So we're going to be bringing those to you. So it's kind of, we're distilling a lot of the juiciest elements of what we were doing before and giving a more sort of powerful, concentrated, at least that's the idea.
Yeah.
A more concentrated, powerful form of what we were doing before without losing the conversational element that I think was really great about the B&E podcast.
Yeah, and I think also not losing the discovery element of it either, because as much as we're kind of imparting in these podcasts, I think there's certain things that we, after 165 episodes, we're like, okay, I'm clear on this thing, and this is solid, and we can all agree on this. I think any law that we kind of bring up, any principle, whatever you want to call it, is something that every artist should be able to go, or could be able to go, I get that. I know that. That's something to be reminded of, and that I can see right now as clarity, like, is the answer. So, like, for example, just to use one that I like to use, is the law of simplicity, or the principle of simplicity. If you're blocked, you're stuck, something's in the way, look at the law of simplicity. Are you simplifying things enough so that they're clear and easy to do? And then there's other laws that can kind of come in and assist and, help, but we're going to go over that. Another one might be the law of beginning, just getting started, right? So anyway, we'll get into all of that, but this is what we've come up with. And we interviewed people who are musicians, screenwriters, actors, producers, an architect we had on. Everybody had the same things come up. And I think once you get balance between artistry and industry, then it's just like, what do you want to do now? Now that you get how this works. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And I think that also in what we're trying to do with this show is that we're not, like, while we have these sort of laws and these principles, one thing that we're not here to do is just to say, we have all of your answers. If you're coming in here saying, like, okay, these guys are just gonna like we're just troubleshooting problems, and that's not really how this works, which is something else that I've learned from doing all the recordings. Like, that's not really how this works. Part of the idea of Way of the Artist, I mean, sort of what our theme that we like to carry through in that is claim your own path. And so with that means that we cannot tell you what your path is. We cannot tell you what to do. All we're here to do is to give some ideas and offer some wisdoms that may or may not help you in whatever situation that you're in. However, I think that we've established, at least for ourselves, and through all of the work that we've been doing and through our experiences, because Brandon and I are both in process. We're both in creating things and pursuing our own artistic interests while we're doing this. And so these things have all helped us in our modalities. So it's not so much about just having the answer, but having just trying to provide some clarity or some perspective on the different challenges that we come up against, the different twists and turns of the path of being an artist. And hopefully those things can help, and as well as get everybody engaged in their own conversations and their own sort of dialogue, whether that's with somebody else or just with themselves about who they are as artists and our directions and the choices we make and how we can be more fulfilled.
Yeah. Fulfillment is a big part of it. I think being centered, feeling like you are going about your life in a way that is integrity with you. The things that matter to you, the things that you find meaning and purpose and joy in, having the courage and the willingness to go and venture into those and face up against what those are. And I think that the reason why this conversation needs to happen, or these conversations need to happen, is that we hit roadblocks. We get blocked. We have to traverse things that we're not skilled in or prepared for or educated about. And we think we're alone in the process a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And I know this personally, being an artist, there's so many times where I think I'm alone going through this thing. And then I realize as I reach out to yourself or another artist friend, and I realize, oh, we're all going through the same thing here. This is a common issue. It might be different for me in the way that I'm going about it, but this is something that is kind of a rite of passage. It's part of the whole deal.
Yeah.
And there was an analogy we used, in our talks about how we wanted to kind of move this forward, and we used the hiking analogy, which I really liked, because you're going on a hike, and maybe you have this goal, this destination at the end, which is the view. But if it was really just about the view, then you'd want to just go and drive up there and then go look at the view and then leave. But people go on a hike because there's a certain kind of experience of hiking. There's a certain kind of earning and exploring, a getting through it that makes the view so worth it. And also because it's more difficult to get to, and the more difficult the hike, the less people get to see that view, the less people crowd the area. And I think when we're on our own paths, a lot of us, I think of myself as a young actor, writer, director, and I think of myself holding the Oscar or something up on stage. Well, when you're holding the Oscar up on stage, it's just you and that thing, right? And I think when an artist is on a path, there's a certain part of us where we see just us at the viewpoint, just us reaching that pinnacle, that top, or just us and a few others, right? But if everybody could go there, it's suddenly not so special. And I think whatever your Oscar moment is, whatever your viewpoint is that you're trying to reach, that's yours. And we want to help you try and claim that, but at the same time, walk your own path and figure out how to traverse this path.
Yeah, because along the way, that path is just as much a part of the place you're going, and it's about making that path worthwhile for doing it, making that journey, every bend and turn and every viewpoint along the way, really relishing in that and enjoying that process. So that's another thing too. It's not just about the place that you're trying to get to; it's about the place you are now as well. It's like, how can you enjoy the hike that you're on? Because ultimately that's another thing about the hike metaphor. If I didn't like hiking, well then who cares about the viewpoint, right? I do it just because I like to go and hike through the woods to see the trees and the rocks and the creeks and the nature and the wildlife. There's all of these reasons why I'm actually doing it. So it's about I guess seeing the forest for the trees, to say a token piece of wisdom, which is another thing we like to take on in our conversations, and we'll do that is take on some of these, token pieces of advice, which are good pieces of advice, but really breaking down what those things are all about as well.
Yeah, looking at a deeper meaning and deeper understanding of this. I mean, I think every artist at some point, in this long enough, we've all experienced being blocked. We've all been like, I got nothing. I'm working with nothing and I don't know what to do and whatever. And being blocked is something that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for creativity. It's an opportunity for you to find out about yourself, about your process. It's a way to find a new way around. And just to go back to the whole hiking analogy, well, let's say you're walking along a path and the path is all really nice and it's trimmed and everything's clear and it's easy and you're moving along. And then all of a sudden you get to a point and you realize there was a big landslide or something or a cave in, and now you can't walk the path. You have to find a new way around. And this is much like life for us as artists. The environment which someone could walk before isn't the same for us today. And so we learn how to get around that. Do I go over the landslide? Do I walk around it? Do I climb the cliff off to the side? What is my way of going around this? And that is what makes it interesting. That's what makes you who you are. And I think what we're really trying to do is, through your own journey, is help you expose to yourself who you are and who you can be, and to build the confidence in that. And to look at these adversities in life as more of an opportunity, a chance. We want to kind of shift perspectives, I think, change some perspectives. And I think, at the same time, face some things that we're facing in our own adversities and expose those on the show and talk about how we're dealing with them. Because every artist in every place is always on a path somewhere. Even after you win your Oscar, you're back on the journey the next day.
Yeah.
Right? To the next film, to the next Oscar, to the next whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that our goal is to do on this show as well, which is that no matter where you're at as an artist, whether you are just starting out, whether you've been in this for a while, whatever modality you are, maybe you're a seasoned professional, but to offer these things up that we believe are kind of timeless truths and wisdoms that are going to be applicable no matter where you're at. So it's all about a lot of what the show is about how we can help you take the next step, no matter where that is, whether that's just starting something out for the first time or that's taking your work to a level that you've never brought it before. Like taking it to a depth and an honesty in yourself that you've never revealed, or there's any number of things that we're going to be getting into, but it's all about taking that next step on your path.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think that as we're going through our own process, we're working that thing. We're figuring out how do we take action and move forward and go through these things ourselves. Because I think the thing is that the further you get down the road of artistry, or where you follow your heart, let's just call it that, the more you realize that the process becomes the thing. Because artistry is a way of life. It's not an end goal. And I think my big issue with the way that we're educated, the way that we're socialized and climatized to this world is we believe in results in a lot of ways. We think that, results or completion is what everything is all about. And there is a degree to that. But there's also this 95% and 99% of the time, it's the journey from A to B.
Yeah, it's the in-between.
B to C, right?
Yeah.
But we get so focused on the A and the B and the C as opposed to the what happened in between there, which is all the life, right? And I think if your life, for example, was A to Z and all you ever focused on was the letters and you forgot about all the times in between, your life would be 26 moments and then done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or even to take that a step further, if your life is like A to Z and it's just and you're just, and you're just looking, you've just started from A and you're just looking to get to the Z, you're going to miss the B, C, D. You're going to miss all of those things that happen in between.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And each one of the letters of the alphabet are crucial.
Yes. And if you haven't figured it out yet, Evan and I like to talk in like analogies and reference points, but I think these things help us to understand sometimes complex ideas.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we want to do. We want to take some things that are seemingly complex, simplify them, make them easy to understand, show different ways in which you can break them down or comprehend or look at your life. And I think this will help,
Yeah,
it helps me. I try to do this in my life all the time, just because I think things can get overwhelming and really complicated really easily. And it's great to have tools in which you can just go, all right, let's just simplify this. What is this like? Well, it's like I'm on a hike and blah, 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 and I just ran into an obstacle.
Yeah.
Okay, now what do I do? Well, I walk around it. I get over it. I do something, right? I turn around, I find a new path. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
And it's, I think a lot of this is about just trying to take a look at our journeys and our paths as artists with a sense of creativity. Like the things that we do are creative, but sometimes the way that it can be hard for us to kind of take a step back and look at our lives and see it from a creative point of view, right? Oftentimes we're just so stuck in something and we're so close to it that we can't see what's right in front of us. We can't see the options that are there for us, right? So it's about also trying to take a step back and see the lay of the land and see how, this is just like a stepping stone. This is just, like to reframe some things a little bit and sometimes that's all that's needed. I mean, we're going to do whatever we can here to shed light on things, like our, sort of like the three main points that we have to our show are to demystify your struggles, to identify your blocks, and help you claim your own path. I mean, that's what we are in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of us listen to podcasts or look at YouTube videos or anything, and we're trying to demystify things that we struggle with, and we're trying to identify things that block us and figure out ways or get tools to overcome this stuff. But this claiming your own path part, I think, is really important because, I believe, and my observation is that everybody's selling something always. Everybody's saying, come this way, buy this thing, do this thing. This is what's good for you. This is what isn't good for you. And when you're going along life, you're going to get this sales pitch in 1,000 different ways. And if you're not centered and you're not clear and you don't know what you want or who you are or what you stand for or what you stand against, you're going to be buying sales pitches all the time that you don't even realize you're buying. Play it safe. Make sure you got a backup plan. Make sure you go to school. Make sure you get a job. You should do this now and do that later. Blah, 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 blah. If you're not centered and clear and you don't have your own path, if you are not trusting your own sense of creativity and artistry, you're going to get pulled and magnetized into other people's safety zones and safety nets. And then what's going to end up happening is you go down that path long enough and you're going to feel the incompleteness and the sellout part of, I gave up on what was actually important to me. And this is what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get you to get centered, get clear, get focused, get on that path that's yours, claim that path. And then you stay on it. And then from there, we go.
Being powerful and authentic artists. That's really, a lot of what this is just an exploration and discovering. It's like, what are the things that can help us be more powerful, more authentic, more honest, more truthful, artists, with like everything that we have, everything that we are. How can we put that out into the world to the best of our ability?
Well, I think about two things. I think about who this is for and who this isn't. And I also think about, the vision, right? And when I think vision, I think about, imagine if people really trusted themselves and really felt okay with who they were and what they wanted. And they felt that they knew where they were going and that they didn't need to ask permission or apologize for it. What could that be? I mean, that's the kind of person that we're looking for. That's the kind of person we want listening to this. The kind of person that said, I'm tired of apologizing for what I want to do with my life. And I'm tired of asking for permission to do it. I am the one that decides. I am doing this. And if you don't like it, get out of the way and don't stop me because I'm going this way. You know what I mean? And if you try to hold me back, I'm losing you. I'm moving on because I have something to do in my life and this is my life. And I only got so much time. And so I think if you're that type of person, this podcast is for you because that's who we're talking to. We're talking to you, the person that's sick and tired of trying to fit in, of trying to please people, of accommodate people, of subjugating yourself. Anyone who's like that, you're going to love it. But if you are someone who thinks that, I want to listen to this podcast because then they'll give me the answers and tell me what to do, and then I can just do their 5-step plan and I'll be fine. Yeah. It's not for you. We're not those people.
We as much as possible, we try to provide practical steps.
Yeah.
But when it comes to these things, there is no color. This is not color by numbers. We can't say what is best for you. This, and this is to me what's part of the exciting thing. Like for some people, this might sound intimidating, but we also, part of our conversations and what we're doing is going to ask something of you, the listener. This is going to require you to do the work yourself, to ask these questions yourselves, to explore these things for yourselves, to ponder. So it's trying to find a balance on this show as much as possible as we try and balance giving maybe some practical ideas. Again, we don't necessarily have just straight on answers that we can just give people.
They're more like options.
They're options. It's like they're ideas. Try this on. Maybe this will help you. So at least something to try and give you some practical steps to get you going in a certain direction, but also presenting a philosophical side to some of this as well. Because I think having philosophical conversations and pondering these things and some of these ideas for ourselves and for yourself is so important now. I think a lot of philosophy has been, the importance of philosophy has been lost over the last number of years. And I think we need that more than ever now, which is to think.
Yes.
That's really, when I talk about philosophy, I'm just saying it's like we're talking about thinking, thinking in a different way, not, and I think I'm kind of piggybacking off of what you were just saying earlier, which is just like some of the systems and the things that we're told to want and should think and to fit in and all of these things. These are all things that are enemies to us as individuals, and as a result, they're an enemy to our art.
I think they are because they mislead us and they confuse us, and we end up chasing something that we never actually checked in to see if we wanted. And I think that, my insight about artistry is this. When you're young, you don't necessarily know what you want. When you kind of get away from your parents or your guardians or your school or your structures, and you kind of get off on your own a little bit, you get to kind of explore and discover. And I think initially, if you're new to artistry, I would say go down different paths, try different things, see what you like, see what you don't like, make decisions. I like this, I don't like that. And look at it. You don't have to have it all figured out yet. As you go down the path, you might find something that you like. And then that's when you want to go, okay, show a little bit of, persistency, stick with it, follow it down the path a little bit further. But don't make so many plans where you're like, if I don't do this for the rest of my life, then I've somehow failed at it. At some point, you might change your path. Let me give an example. Personally, because I think that's valuable. Mm-hmm. I was going along in life as a young man, as a teenager, and I was playing sports, pretty high levels, and I thought, I'm going to be an athlete. That was my path for a little while. And then, as I got into my later teens, I started to realize that, the path of being an athlete was a certain path that I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure anymore. I'm kind of having a little bit of a crisis of faith. I've been an athlete for my whole life, but I'm starting to realize that I don't know if athletics is my thing. I started to venture into what was architecture. We had an advanced drafting and design program in school. So I got great grades. I went down this road of drafting design, started using AutoCAD and designing, houses and whatnot. And so I'm like, I'm going to be an architect. I'm going to move to Colorado. That was my vision.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to move to Colorado. I'm going to be an architect. I just had this idea, right? I went away the next summer, and for fun at camp, I made a movie with a bunch of friends. None of us were actors. I borrowed my friend's mom's camera. We made this little 8-minute movie, and then there was a talent festival, a show, and my friends were like, it was really funny, the little movie, and they were like, put it in. And so I was like, sure, let's do it. We ended up winning. 300 people watched my little movie, and I decided that day I'm going to be a filmmaker. So then I dropped out of my drafting design program, went into filmmaking. The next year, my dad and I moved out to Vancouver, which is like, Hollywood North. And immediately, working there at a restaurant, and a big agent in town came in and said, I like your look, come in, do a reading with me. And he's like, I want you to be an actor. I'm going to rep you. So then I became an actor. So what I'm saying is that you don't know where your path's going to lead you, but you got to trust whatever you feel is right at the moment, because it will lead you exactly down the path you need to be. And so here's the thing that I just want to say just off the top of this first episode. You don't need to know exactly what it'll look like at the end yet. But what you do need to do right now is you need to trust what you really want to do today, because we can work with you today, but 10 years down the road, who knows? And if you decide you go down this road of acting, being a musician, being a filmmaker, being an architect, being whatever, and you decide at some point you don't want to do that, you want to do something else, you didn't give up, you didn't lose. You simply altered your path because new information, new experiences became available to you. And this is part of the journey. This is part of claiming your own path. You got to keep claiming it. You don't just claim it once and then you're done.
Yeah.
And
not resisting the path.
Yes. Because you got to walk it, right? Or you just sit still and then you let life pass you by and you watch all these other people go off on their journeys and go, oh, I wish I could do that. Yeah, this is good, man.
Well, so that's what we're about, people. That's Way of the Artist. And you can expect more of some of this, but we'll be getting more.
A bunch.
A bunch. We'll be getting more and more like into specific areas to discuss. We're going to have guests on the show from different artistic modalities.
We're gonna get more musicians, actors, directors. We'll try and get architects, novelists. We had novelists on before, producers.
I don't even know the different kinds of people that we might have on.
Yeah, I'm just giving some examples.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Created a little list in my head. Before we end, I also want to share a couple other things. One is that what your next few episodes are going to be about. Our first set of episodes, our first, 3 to 7 to 10 or so, we're not sure quite yet. We're figuring that out. They're going to be there for you guys to kind of get a lot of foundational things that we're going to build the rest of the podcast on.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this episode, those first several are going to be important. They're going to really set a tone and create a foundation for all the more advanced stuff we talk about later.
Yeah.
And
because we dive down some pretty big rabbit holes at times. So, yeah, it's good to just kind of get it, because sometimes we're doing this because sometimes we forget from having done as many recordings and talked to as many people as we have, all the kind of stuff that we've covered.
Yes.
So it is important to establish a bit of a baseline, which is essentially what the first few are going to be about.
Yeah, and so, we'll do our best to kind of curate and set things up so that you guys can get things in, groupings or, in order so that it's easier for you guys to digest stuff. Because we still want to go down these deeper philosophical, rabbit holes about where stuff is. And I think that certain things that if you have never even talked about it or thought about it, certain things that we talk about in more advanced conversations might be harder to follow because, it's just part of like layering on top of foundations that you're building on. So that's something to keep in mind as you guys move forward through this. And if something's not making sense, maybe go back, listen to some of the earlier episodes. And then from there on, I think once we set a good foundation, you can kind of just hop around, pick a title that lands with you and then enjoy that, right? And I think, we'll try to craft that, communicate that as best as possible. That's one of our big goals in this new version of this is we want to be able to be better communicators, be clear, be more focused, and set things up in a nice path for you to walk. So you have points of reference.
Yes. And with that said as well, we are looking to be way more engaged with our community with Way of the Artist. So there are a few things you can do. You can, for one, you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcast. We're pretty much on it, but
we'll be on all the directories. So
that's awesome for us. If you want to subscribe and like and give us lovely reviews, or just give us an honest review if there's something that you think that we can do better. But we also have a Facebook group, Way of the Artist, where we're going to be posting lots of different stuff, connecting lots of different artists, and you can get direct links with us that way. And if you like all of that stuff, if you're enjoying the episodes and everything, we also have a Patreon account as well. If you want to support us, we really appreciate that. It helps us to improve the quality of the show, do all kinds of like awesome new things, and we'll be offering extra bonuses for anybody who subscribes to us on Patreon as well.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't really know what Patreon is, it's a support platform. It's a subscription platform in some respects. What ends up happening is that you become kind of our true blue fans, the people that are helping to make the show something more and help us really grow. And I think the thing is with the Patreon, with that model, what we want to do is we want to walk the extra mile for you if you want to walk the extra mile for us. So if you're interested in really kind of getting involved and getting more into this and interacting with us more and getting kind of like, that special content that we're not just going to release out to everybody, that's the place to go. But for the meantime, subscribe to the podcast, like it, all of that, leave a review. That'd be great. And and you can come to our website too, and you can ask us questions, and or on Twitter or whatever, and we'll literally do episodes about the things that you guys ask. Or if you're on Patreon, we can do smaller videos specifically for people who want a specific thing. So we're glad to have you, and thanks for listening to this point.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you got something out of this, if you feel it improved your life or your journey in any way, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share the episode.
You can also support us on Patreon, where we have tons of great bonuses. You are the ones that make the show possible and help us to thrive. Thank you for joining us.